Happy Friday. Okay, I cannot read what that says. Can you hear me? Oh, they have changed. Oh, yeah, you can. They changed the layout of the audio mixer and I couldn't see all of my audio inputs. So I apologize for that, but looks like we are live and you all can hear me. Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. It has been a minute. As you can see right off the bat, Miss Bandita is doing perfectly fine. She is back there. You can kind of see her little blue recovery onesie that she is in. So at the top here, I will just give a quick Bandit update for people who did not see. But last week, Bandit, which is this little fuzzy creature right here, suddenly became very sick and vomited and would not like even stand up going outside and was just very, very, very poorly. And I took her to the vet and the vet gave me some very dramatic and scary information. And then we went to the ER and she had surgery and we went back and forth and now she's recovering and she's all good. But she has to be in a little onesie for another 5 days. And she can't go on walks longer than 5 minutes, which is really sad because it's like the best weather we've had in Portland so far this year is like exactly this week. So it's really weird when you're used to walking a dog everywhere, going on solo walks. I'm like, why am I have a purpose with this walk and it's taking this small creature outside to observe the planet. And now she's not here with me. She's inside and I'm outside. But she does get a lot of time lounging outside in the patio, so she enjoys that. But that is the Bandit update if you were curious. She's doing much better, as we all can see. Yeah, we're talking about you, sweetie pie. Hi. Yeah, you can't tell, but she has one little chicken leg that's shaved because of the IV line they had to put in. And her entire, like, stomach bottom half is also totally shaved off. So cool stuff. Welcome to the live stream. So for people who are new, thank you all so much for spending some of your Friday with me. If you're new here, as it says up here, we do have some rules as well as an FAQ down below, and I would really recommend that you read them. It's very, very simple. Basically, number one is in order to be in this live stream, you must be at least 18, because this is an 18 plus only stream because of the nature of the topics that we discuss. Certainly, if you are a minor, that doesn't mean you can't learn about sex or something. I am just not a resource for that. That is the realm of professionals who are licensed and have authority in that area. I'm not that person, so if you are a teenager, please come back when you become an adult. You are more than welcome to come back. I've had that happen before where people say, oh my god, I turned 18 yesterday, now I can be in the live stream. And we love it when people respect the rules of a space. It's a good foot to start off on. Today's beverage, by the way, new flavor, sour watermelon creatine. It's good stuff. It tastes like a watermelon Jolly Rancher. It's not actually that sour. It's like 10% sour. I don't even know what that means. It's very, very lightly sour. But that's not even a rule. It's not an FAQ. The other stuff you need to know is listen to me, listen to the mods, be respectful in the chat. Don't spam the chat, okay? If you do that, YouTube, I don't even have control over it. YouTube will just time you out, so that's just a warning for what YouTube will do. We also have a Q&A feature. It is currently pinned to the top of the chat. It's a little white box up there, and you can put your questions in there because this is an interactive Q&A, and you all come in and ask questions, and I answer them, and we get feedback from the audience, and sometimes I ramble, and it's a great, fun experience. It's a fun time. We all like it. And in addition to that, you can also use a super chat or Streamlabs down below, and it will highlight your question on screen. It'll read it out loud, and you get bumped to the front of the line because otherwise answer questions kind of roughly in the order they come in. I try my best to get to as many questions as I can, and the most fair way to do that is by answering things in order. So if you are here right now and you are early in the chat, now is the best time to ask a question because it is the most likely that I will answer it. I usually put a couple of potential topics in the title of the live stream, things that have been on my brain that I've been thinking about lately, and we don't have to talk about those things. They're more just kind of rough ideas of some things that I thought might be fun. But otherwise, that I think is really all y'all need to know, other than, you know, I don't give medical advice or things like that, right? I can't like tell you how to make a sterile field via a live stream. I can't tell you whether or not something is infected or whether you should see a doctor or whether or not you're like individually mentally well enough to do kink. We can certainly have conversations about, you know, health and safety in kink and mental well-being in kink in a broad sense, but as far as those individual medical things, that is for professionals and not for me. So that is what y'all need to know about that. What has been going on? How is everyone doing? Yes, Bandita is recovering really well. Where did she go? Oh, she's like behind the blanket. I love this because to me, it's like having a panda exhibit camera. It's like, you know, like, is it going to be visible? Is she going to be like in front of the camera in her cage? Obviously, she's not caged up there. I can tell she has ways of, I can read her body language. She wants to get off of the couch, but she loves it up there. Every single time I sit on the couch, even if it's literally just to put my shoes on, she's like, please let me be up on the couch, human. I want to be on the couch. So this is actually fun for her. She loves being on the couch, just in case anyone was like, oh my god, you're trapping your poor dog on a couch. It's not how that works. But anyways, that is that on that. Ooh, jalapeno popcorn. That is interesting. I really like, there's this one brand, and I cannot remember the name of it, makes a really good avocado lime bag popcorn. And it is the only kind of pre-pop popcorn I will buy. And thank you so much, Trixie, for being an 18-month member. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just gave my partner a needles and fire taster not long ago, and they loved both. How's that? That is awesome, Lucia. That is fantastic. Great news, especially because those are both, you know, fairly unique and to a lot of people intense forms of edge play, and I'm so glad they like both, and I'm glad that it went well. We love a good taster. I'm having a rough delayed sub drop day and just watched your video about that topic earlier, which helped me process it a bit. I'm excited I caught this stream. Heck yeah, glad you could be in the stream. Hope you're doing better. Rough sub drop is rough. I know I had quite a bit of sub drop after the very long weekend I had before Kinkfest and then during Kinkfest, which was this past weekend. And it was a lot, definitely helped by my dog being in better spirits and having some nice weather. I don't know if I would have mentioned this in the video that you would have watched because I forget the sun exists because of where I live. But this is like just generally good for you. When you wake up in the morning, in the first, ideally as soon as possible, but in the first like 2 hours that you're awake, just like go for a walk. Even if you have a balcony, oh, this is perfect for this. Even if you don't have to even be that productive, all right? It's just about getting sun exposure. If you can go on your balcony and get some sunlight, or sit in front of a window and get some direct sunlight and by like, you know, have the window open, like let the sun stream in a little bit, right? Like, so actually you kind of feel the sun on you. Do that for like 10 minutes while you're checking Twitter or TikTok or texting people. And if you can't go on a walk, because that also involves some movement that can be nice to have. But I always forget every year how much better my mental well-being is as soon as I have a couple of sunny days close together. I'm like, oh, that's right. The outdoors doesn't suck. And don't get me wrong, I love the ambiance of the Pacific Northwest. I love the rain and the dreary, but objectively, if it's only ever that for months and months, I am worse off. So it is good for me to get some exposure to regular sunlight, and it does really make a difference. Oh no, I just got home from a munch and it was fun but too cold. That's rough. I do not process cold very well, which is also partly why I like it when it's warm and sunny outside. I am very happy at very hot temperatures. I do not tolerate cold very well. That is not my environment. I am not an Arctic girly, And I know if I'm like, this is actually what's hard. I don't know if other people feel this way, but it actually was one of the hardest things about working in an office or just anywhere that was outside of my house is not having control over the temperature and like constantly being cold. Like I remember one of my previous jobs when I was still in college is I worked at a grocery store, and it could be, actually it got worse in the summer because they blast the fucking AC. So because when you're just in and out in like 20 minutes or whatever to pick up groceries, you don't really notice it. But when you're standing in a grocery in like one spot for 4 hours, the cold really sets in and it's not pleasant. So I'm wearing like long sleeves under my work shirt and just like desperately trying to stay warm. I wish I knew about like thermal stuff that I could have worn, and that probably would have made it a lot better, but it was rough. That was not fun. That was actually probably one of my least favorite things, is I feel like the cold made everything so much more boring and just, oh my God, the people that make careers out of being cashiers at a grocery store blow my mind. Like I would be like, even just doing anything like that anywhere in a store for like 4 hours, even part-time, made me feel like I was gonna go postal. Like I just did not, there's no way this is good. But they have now started to let cashiers sit in chairs during their shift. And I think that that's positive because for some reason, as America, as a country, we have decided that if a cashier sits on their shift, it means they're lazy. And that just seems really weird to me. But yeah. I got a walking pad for my balcony so I don't have to deal with the weather. It's great. That actually is a fantastic idea. Do you like bring it inside or is it weatherproof? Because here the big issue would be the fact it would definitely get rained on and destroyed quickly. But I like that idea in general. That's a good one, actually. I might borrow that sometime. Funnily enough, I actually was doing great this morning and early afternoon while running errands and being out in the sun, then crashed once I laid down in bed and the weather got kind of nasty. I mean, yeah, that'll happen. I think sometimes also, and I'm going to say this is happening to you, but I'm just sort of theory crafting about subdrop if you'll allow it for a moment, which you can't stop me because you can't give me in the moment direct feedback. But I do feel like there's, when you're, whether it's subdrop or coping with a breakup or some kind of loss or a friend breakup or you got fired at work, if you're dealing with some kind of hard time mentally, physically, emotionally, when you're out and about in the world and you're running errands, you're getting groceries, you're doing anything, I feel like it's a lot more likely that you're going to keep it together because there's sort of the social pressure of not crying in public. There's the fact that you're pretty preoccupied with doing a certain activity. There's the fact that your body might not feel safe in strange or unusual or public spaces around strangers. And it's when you get back home into your safe place that your body is like, oh my God, absolutely the fucking wah! And then you just like collapse a little bit. And it actually gets worse when you get to a safe place because your body/brain knows that this is a safe environment to have that kind of breakdown in versus like in the line at the bank. So I think actually it's kind of this weirdly protective thing that is like, it could definitely be the weather changing, but I think probably a non-zero amount of it is a lot of us feel more able to get into those emotions and our body and brain will sort of press pause on experiencing them until we get to a safer place to experience them. This is actually why if you're doing something where you're like starting to like think through an emotion for the first time or go back to, you know, maybe like a negative memory or a bad relationship or something, and you're thinking about it, where like in the moment when those things were going on, you didn't necessarily have a reaction to it because that would have been contrary to your ability to emotionally or physically survive that experience. And so once you're out of it and you feel safe again, then all the things start coming back. And that's kind of the whole timeline of experiencing things, right? Is you have the experience, then you have sort of this interim period where your brain's like, pause, we're not going to process this yet. Sometimes this is like very short, sometimes not. And then suddenly you process it and it goes from like, boop, and it's really sucky. And then it goes back up because you're working through the junk mail. You're working through all the leftovers that your body and brain were holding on to. And then when you process it, you get through it, then it gets better. But it doesn't mean it doesn't suck in the moment while you're experiencing it, right? That's why in Southern California, workers wear goodies to work, even in the summer. I don't know, what are goodies? Is it like a shoe brand or something? I don't know why that seems to me like it's a shoe brand. I used to work in an archive. Oh my gosh, I know that's probably, if it's an archive, that's not for the temperature sensitive, at least in my sense of it. Every time I went outside during the summer, it was like walking into an oven. That was actually my favorite way to spend my break, was to go into my hot ass car that had no AC and just like sit in the warmth for like 10 minutes and then go back inside. Hey Lexi, what's going on? I don't know why I wanted to translate that from Japanese, but there you go. Apparently it thinks you're Japanese for some reason. Very true, is in a bit of an errand flow state, and the crash came within an hour of stopping the tasks. It's a new relationship, trying lots of new stuff, so I should be prepared better for the drop. But I communicated with them, and I might need more aftercare, and time together the next day, lots of positive learning. Heck yeah! You can have a safe space to do that learning with somebody you trust. That is definitely the best way to do it, and I hope your future endeavors go better. Now that you have some learning under your belt. I know that I am still learning new things all the time with my kink about, oh, this is what I like, or this is how to describe what I need, or this is my preference, or whatever. And it's just something you got to stay in touch with, and it allows you to communicate better just in general. I think to be in touch with your body and what experiences you're going through, and what help you may or may not need to process that. Like, I had an experience when I was like, I feel like this year at Kink Fest was weird because I definitely know if I go balls to the wall at a convention where I am in the convention space from 9 a.m. until the wee hours of the morning, I know for sure I'm gonna crash the next day because it just go, and it's all gonna hit me at once. But it's also something kind of weird happens when you're like starting and stopping, and it's more about like headspace management of staying in the mindset of the convention when you're coming and going a lot more. And I feel like that was more my recent lesson of how do I, even though my brain is thinking about like my sick dog and like paying for vet care and managing my schedule now that I had to take this emergency like time off and reschedule things, how do I allow that to exist and then also stay focused and present on being in classes and wanting to plan scenes and being with people and socializing, and how do I make that work? Estrogen has completely turned my hands and feet into ice blocks. More weird things that exogenous hormones do to people's bodies. I'm not shocked by that. Estrogen is a hell of a thing. I guess that makes sense with like women who go through menopause have a lot of hot flashes and have temperature regulation issues. So that's probably it. I definitely have seen it said before, and I think this is generally true, that on average, women tend to tolerate cold a lot less. I think also probably because your fat distribution changes. I'm not sure if it's just the hormone itself or like altering your perception, or if it's the change in where your fat is on your body. I think it might be kind of both, but I don't know though. Because you'd think with having more fat reserves in like your stomach and your butt and on your chest, you would think that that would insulate your core more and then you wouldn't feel cold as readily, but then your hands and your feet get colder because, I don't know. I'm sure somebody has a study on that. I just don't know what it is. I love sadomasochism, but how do I deal with a pit in your stomach? It's not bad, but it's there. Okay, so let's talk through this. You say you have a pit in your stomach, and this is like literally what I would do, okay? How do you deal with a pit in your stomach? Can you put an emotion word to what the pit in your stomach is? Like, is it fear? Is it apprehension? Is it anxiety? Is it nervousness about what's gonna happen? Get as specific as you can with that, because I think that will change the answer. Now, when I get what I would call a pit in my stomach, usually that's like a fearful apprehension where I know something is going to happen and I can't really do anything about it, but I don't know what it's going to be like for me to experience it. And so in order to cope with that feeling, well, one, I might intentionally lean into it because that's maybe an emotion I want to be experiencing. And so I recognize the physical sensation, but I don't try to change it actively because it's fine. It's just is what it is. But if there's something about that I don't want to take into the scene space, usually what I will end up doing is sort of one of two things or like a combination of both. So the first thing is recognizing the emotion, kind of talking to myself about what it is and why it's there, and reminding myself that I'm capable of handling this, that the partner I'm with is somebody that I vetted, that I feel safe with, that I have experience with, and I have confidence in my own ability to handle whatever the experience is going to be, and that I know how to communicate, I know they can stop the scene at any time, and that ultimately, if I really don't want to do this, I do have a way to stop what's going to happen either before or in the moment, and that ultimately emotional states and intense experiences are transient, and no matter how much it sucks, it will eventually be over, and I can do anything for 10 seconds, right? As the saying goes. Sometimes I'll just remind myself of my own survivability and the trust I have in people, and being willing to take faith in that trust and lean into it, and that can help kind of lessen the intensity of the pit in my stomach. It's more like a yearning, sad but good for the pit in the stomach, if that makes sense. Okay, yeah. So anyways, that's my first way of dealing with it. My second way of dealing with that is, oh my god, I just totally lost my train of thought. What was the second way that I was just going to talk about of like coping with these emotions? So one is kind of taking things on faith with my partner. And I guess the bigger question is like, do you want to be experiencing that yearning sadness? And do you want to lean into it, or do you want it to go away? Because that's really what the second suggestion is like, if that's something you don't want to take into the scene space, then there's one process. But if you do like it and you do want it, then I think one of the better tools to use for that is verbalizing the experience to your partner and texting them, telling them verbally, whatever it is, saying, hey, like, I'm looking forward to our scene later, and I'm experiencing this buildup, and I have this sensation of like yearning sadness. And kind of cluing your partner into what your body state is like, and sometimes just by telling other people what our bodies are doing, it can make it feel easier to hold. But if you don't want to be experiencing that and you feel like it's a negative for you or your scenes, then we get into, okay, we want to like shift our brain to something else, and then we are going to go into a whole process of doing some kind of regulation. For me, that's usually some sort of rhythmic deep breathing, doing some kind of counting down, staying focused on a visualization. If I have a partner with me, having them hold me, breathing with them. And this is actually what I had. I'm not even kidding you. When I was in the ER with my dog, and I didn't know if she was going to make it, I didn't know how bad the surgery was going or not, and I was panicking. What I had to do, this is literally what I did, is I was in like a private waiting area. I was in like I don't know what they call it, like a consultation room or something. Observation room. What are they called? Just like the little individual rooms you go into when you're in like a hospital or an ER or something. I was in one of those waiting to hear about what was going to go on and what was going on with my dog. And I was panicking and fearing for the worst. And I was like, this is intolerable. I can't make effective decisions when I'm in this state. So I need to get my brain out of it, and we can process this later. So how do I get out of this right now? And the best way that works for me is doing intentional, slow, rhythmic breathing, like either doing some kind of square breathing. This also you can look up, or probably what's most simple is I wasn't even at the point where I was trying to follow some kind of specific breathing protocol. I was just like, I need to close my eyes, think about my breathing, and just try to breathe slowly. And then I was telling myself that in order, like, what do I want to do? How can I be effective in this moment? What is my goal? My goal is to be present so that way I can make the right choices for my dog. And I know that being really dysregulated isn't going to help me make good decisions or help me communicate effectively. So while I feel this emotion, being totally overwhelmed by it is going to work out. And then just kind of focusing on mentally wanting to be in the place that I wanted to be for the experience that I was in. And by the time I was done sort of talking myself through, like, wanting to, you know, act in a way that was in alignment with taking care of my pet and being able to talk to doctors and take in whatever was happening in the moment, and I was deep breathing and all of that, by the time I did that for like 2 or 3 minutes, it was like my distress level had gone down significantly. Also because I wasn't in my brain spinning out thinking about, like, what's the worst case that could happen, which I think is a lot of emotional sadomasochism, is like, how wrong could this go? And if you want to lean into the fear and the discomfort, then that can be a good thing. But if that becomes overwhelming, then having a way to take down that distress level can also be very effective too. How does the yearning and sadness make you feel alone? Like you can't connect to your partner? Yeah, I think that's also a really good question too. I think sometimes it's like, I haven't said this directly, and I think this is worth mentioning, so I'll say this as well. If what you want is to feel sad, that's one thing, but the yearning sadness could also be like, okay, this is going to say it in a shorter way than what I was just about to get into, which is, what is the sadness connected to? So is this sadness a desired result that you're trying to get into? Is this because you feel disconnection? Is this because you are, like, I don't know, grieving something about this relationship? Or maybe you feel like you're doing something you don't really want to be doing, or maybe it's reinforcing some negative self-image about, I deserve to suffer this way, or it could be a million things, right? So just self-reflect on what the sadness could be connected to, I think, is another positive step to take as well. That helps so much, and I'm sorry with what happened with your dog, but that was also healthy. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're very welcome. Glad I could help. Hopefully things go better, and I think just whenever you're confronted by an emotion and a physical feeling, kind of depending on what pops up first, it's, you know, identifying the physical sensation, putting an emotion to that physical sensation, and then asking yourself, what is that emotion connected to? Where is that coming from? What's the reasoning behind it? What's making that pop up? And then, do I want to be experiencing this right now and processing it, or do I want to put it on hold, or do I want to change my mind about this in some way? And then kind of acting differently depending on how all of that goes. And I think if you do have a really trusted partner that you know cares about you, and you're having kind of wibbly wobbly, upset, sad, anxious feelings about scenes that you're doing, definitely talk to people about that, because I'm sure any of the tops in this chat would tell you that they want to know what their partners are experiencing. And if you're having a hard time going into scenes, if they're the good ethical top, they will probably want to either help you figure out how to make the scenes be something you're less anxious about, or they at least want to help mitigate you coming into the scene space with a negative mindset, if that's potentially something that's happening as well. But lots of good questions. Okay, I'm going to scroll back up here. I know we have some more questions that have popped up in the chat, but I want to make sure I'm getting to some that popped up earlier I didn't get to. Please also use, if you would like, sort of, you don't have to, because I do check both in the main chat and here, but if you would like to answer or ask a question more privately, and you want to make sure for sure that I will see it, put it in the Q&A box up there. Otherwise, put it in the chat, and I will try my best to get to it as we go through the stream, but I can't promise anything. Also, I've accidentally moved the camera ever so slightly, so let me change that. The sadness is like, for example, it would like something with my partner in the future, but maybe not now, but it's like a good yearning sadness, if that makes sense, but it's not bad. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, if it's not bad, then I think just the yearning, I think, is interesting with that. I think I can identify with what sort of emotion you're talking about. Of like, I've definitely felt that way before about people. Of I like what's happening, but I also sort of long for there to be more than this. And I think that gets into like radically accepting like where you're at right now and being like, I can want more, but also I can accept where things are currently at in the moment, and what can I do to get to where I want to be. And I think when we take action, we oftentimes feel more effective, when we feel better about ourselves, when we know that we are doing something to make our lives look the way that we want them to look, or have the relationships that we want to have. And this can turn into mental busy work stuff of like, I want to live this like calm, comfortable life. And in order to get to that, I have all these grand plans, but I always get really distracted and super involved in like cleaning my whole house, as opposed to making a plan for going back to school, or committing to a morning routine, or doing other steps that are also really important. So I think it's also like, when we're taking action, it's important to make sure we're taking action that is working, as opposed to just acting to act, if that makes sense. Thank you for doing the class with Tess. Hope things are well. Yeah, things are going pretty well. Had a lot of fun teaching with Tess. Sadly, it looks like I'm not going to test this year, but maybe future years that'll work out. Hard to say what the future will hold, but I definitely had a good time teaching, and there will be more classes online in the future. Okay, I'm scrolling back up now. We are looking for more questions. Was there unemotional sadomasochism? You know what? I would say that a lot of sadomasochism involves some level of emotional experience, but usually ESM, or emotional sadomasochism, is an umbrella term that's used for things like surprise play, fear play, mindfuckery, hypnosis, anything that involves messing with the brain specifically without necessarily having a physical component to it, i.e. bondage, impact play, crying because you got hit really hard, so on and so on. And there are definitely people who do less emotional sadomasochism, where they're maybe not having a really pronounced like fear response or anger or anything else, but it's still there in some like small degree, because you can't really like, kink is fundamentally a body mind experience, and I think it's a lot easier to have just the mind versus the mind and the brain, or just the body, but usually it's both together in some form, I would say. Oh my goodness, little girly, you're on your big pillow, huh? Oh my goodness, I did not toggle over to the big pillow. The big pillow is not in frame. I'm so sorry. Look at you smiling, girl. Are we a little warm? It was a little warm today, huh? I swear the screen isn't frozen. She just is like hanging out like that, and it is very adorable. Yes, I am also very happy that the Papita is doing very well. Estrogen isn't scary, it's an adventure. Yeah, fair enough. I'm late on the topic, but being on tea made me so warm. I used to hate the cold, now I'm always sweating. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know, hormones are fascinating. So interesting. I guess I was assuming that they were asking for the masochist part, because I mean, I don't imagine that most sadists go into scenes with a pit in their stomach. I mean, maybe they do. Please let me know. but I don't think I've ever had a top who's a sadist at least describe to me what they experienced before a scene is a pit in their stomach. They might have like pre-scene jitters or nerves in the sense of like, are they gonna judge me? Am I gonna fuck this up? Is this gonna be awkward? Am I gonna say something embarrassing that I think is hot in the moment and then it comes out totally wrong? Like, those are the kinds of things I hear tops talk about as their pre-scene mental space. If it's not always the most positive and it's a little bit more ruminating, but yeah, that's maybe an assumption on my part. My date and I actually discussed kink tonight. He's into it, but he's pretty much just into sadism and pain. So if we go further with this, I don't think I'll do kink with him, but that's fine. Very good to know soon. I'm super glad that you talked about that. I know there's a lot of conversation about when's the right time to talk to your partner about kink. When do you introduce kink? And for me, it's unavoidable because it's my job. And so I usually get into it very quickly just on dates, because the typical first date question pretty quickly is like, oh, what do you do for work? And so I have to explain my job. And also, like, I only really match with people that I think would be kinky, or they say it on their profile already. So I have occasional experience with people who are currently vanilla, but at least are kink curious. And it's just, kink is part of my life. Polyamory is part of my life. If you are not down for either or both of those things, it's not going to work out. And I'd rather talk about that on date one versus following some sort of weird rule where, like, oh, you don't get into talking about topics like that until your third date or until you really know them, or your fifth date. And it's like, why would I waste both of our time and money going on dates to later find out 4 dates in that you hate kink and it's disgusting and you think people who do it are awful? If kink's that important to you. Now, if you're just like, I'm kind of curious about kink, I don't know if I'm gonna like it or not, it's a nice to have, not a need to have, then okay, different guidebook for you. You might be happy in a vanilla monogamous relationship, and if kink is there, great, but if it's not, it's fine. So it's not really an elimination criteria for your dating life. And that's really what I think about it as. Like, I think about what are my elimination criteria where if this was true about a person, I wouldn't want to date them, or I wouldn't want to date them seriously or exclusively, or do a DS relationship with them or something like that. And for me, that oftentimes comes down to level of involvement in kink. What kind of kinks do you have? Monogamy versus polyamory, level of experience with those two things, and then obviously a bunch of general personality, life interests, how do you handle conflict type stuff, which should be, I don't even know if I've ever sat down and listed that out before, but it's very vibes based. It's definitely like, you just know when you know, right? You just know when you know. Also, like, I think sex drive is a really big one too, that like people are very weird talking about, but especially in a vanilla, do people who are vanilla monogamous, do they ever, like, I feel like the only people who are vanilla monogamous that probably talk about this stuff with any level of frequency or amount of disclosure are probably people that are high body count people. That's the word. High body count people. And sex is like one of their main motivators, if not the main motivator for having a relationship. And so it's very natural for them to either flirt around it or dirty talk around it pretty early into a relationship. But even then, they're probably not having a frank conversation up front about, you know, what role does sex play in your relationships? Like, I think people think that if you're going to talk about sex, it has to be like, oh, baby, I'm going to do this and this and this to you. And it doesn't have to be that at all. It can just be like, hey, so like, what role does sex play in your relationships? You know, how do you feel about barrier usage? Blah, blah, blah. Like, not very sexy stuff, but an important conversation, because if you have incompatibility there and you're looking for either a one and only partner or a primary partner especially, it's generally not great to intentionally start off where one partner has a I want to do things 3 times a day sex drive, and the other partner is like, I forget it exists and maybe once a month would be fine. Could that work? Sure. maybe. But if you had the choice, and especially early on, you have so much choice because you're not committed to anybody. You're not living together. You're not married. Like, the world is your oyster. You are selecting and test driving people to engage with further. So why not look for that deeper level of compatibility on things that are important? And I read this Reddit story this morning when I was browsing the internet, and it completely blew my mind. And maybe it was last night, actually. I think it was last night, not this morning. It was like a 19-year-old dating a 21-year-old. So thank God, wasn't a problematic age gap. Shocking how many Reddit stories are people who are 21 dating a 37-year-old. That's like half of the questions on Reddit are like, why is my 37-year-old boyfriend yelling at me about how stupid I am all the time? Is this normal? It's like, oh my God. The age gap isn't the problem, but it doesn't make it better. But yeah, I remember it was like they were 19 and 21, and I think, I don't remember if I commented on it or if I saved it, because I wish I could pull it up and tell you all about it. But it was essentially somebody asking, am I overreacting to this thing that my boyfriend said? And it's like, oh my God, this man hates you. Like, why are you still here? Like, you have very different sexual needs. You have very different emotional needs in a relationship. You communicate differently. Why are you engaged to this man? You do not need to be getting married. Holy God Almighty, please do not commit yourself to this man forever. And yet people do sometimes. And yet people do. Like, if you're... I just don't get it. I mean, I've been there before. We're in my early 20s. I committed to relationships that were not very compatible, but it was because there were other things that were drawing me to the relationship. And especially it was the other person telling me that we were very compatible and that we were like meant to be together and yada yada. And then my big dumb brain would be like, well, they're saying it's true, so it probably is, and I'm just missing out on something here. And it turns out that I was actually right, and there was just a base level of incompatibility that I accepted because it made the relationship work for somebody else, and it was serving them more than it was serving me. So I really recommend checking in about that as early on as possible. And I'm a take no prisoners kind of gal when it comes to dating. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to casually date 6 different fucking people. If I am putting in the time, energy, money, and space away from my dog to date you, it is, especially also time with other partners as well, nonetheless. If I'm doing that, there can't be like, oh, well, like, we get along pretty well, and, we have some kinks in common. Like, okay, well, then do pick up play with this person when you're at the same dungeon. Be friends even. Do you think that could be a possibility? Like, there has to be it has to be something that's really, really working, because I like serious, committed, long-term relationships, casual, short-term dating, hookups, situationships. Anything like that makes me want to set my brain on fire. It just seems... it's not that it'd be a waste. It just doesn't... It's not what I want from relationships. Like, I am an intense person, at least in that respect. I want people that are also intense, and I want intense connections. And you can't really get that with casual situationships where you, like, talk for a grand total of 2 hours every month. Like, that's just not happening. Classic Reddit, partner has no redeeming qualities, but I love them. And it's like, yeah, do you really love them? And I think a lot of people, I don't want to say that other people don't know what love is, but especially when you've been like, we've been together for 6 months and we love each other, but also nothing is working, please send help. It's like, no, baby, you are not in love. You are in limerence, and your attachment system is ablaze. You have mistaken fear of loss for love, and that's a lesson that a lot of us need to learn, sadly. But once you learn it, you realize, oh, no, this isn't like genuine, heartfelt, emotionally close attachment. this is because I'm terrified of losing them and or of being alone, and that is what's motivating this relationship to keep going forward. I've never understood why so many people need sex and romance / relationships to be synonymous. Yeah, that's a whole other thing too, is like, do you want to date? Do you want to have sex? Because you definitely don't need to do both at the same time. You can do one without the other. See the ethical slut. There's not an ace equivalent of the ethical slut. I think that would be like the ethical romanticist or something, which I think could be a fun read of like, how do you date people without sex? Like just a guidebook to that I think would be fan-fucking-tastic. Because I think we have plenty of books that explore what it means to be asexual. We have lots of memoirs of asexuality that people have written at this point, but we don't have an ethical slut equivalent for being asexual or demisexual. How do you date people if you very rarely, or also I'm sort of interpolating low sex drive or low desire for sex on top of asexuality, because I think even if you're ace, if you have a higher level of sex favorability or you have a higher sex drive, it's probably just going to cause less friction. I think that could definitely be a chapter or two in the book, because it does exist and it's worth talking about. But the majority of people, I think, that would want to read a book like that, it's like the ethical slut is meant for people that want to have like multiple hookups and not just like find one guy to have sex with after their divorce. You know, like there's different users, different novels. Dating people that are having sex, pretty easy for me. I'm glad to hear that. That's not been my experience of trying to date people. I've had more success with it as I've gotten older, but negotiating a relationship where sex is not on the table, or certain types of genital experiences, to be broader about it, are not on the table, has been frustrating in the sense that I'm very upfront about, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I'm willing to do, this is what I won't do, yada yada yada. And I have just had so many experiences in my life of people that do not get that, and it goes in one ear and they nod along, and then it goes out the other ear, and then 6 months, a year, 2 years later, 5 years later even, they're like, well, I just kind of thought you'd change your mind. But it's kind of, I mean, but it's been so long, and I haven't gone to do this and such amount of time, and I just thought, maybe blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no. You weren't supposed to do any thinking about that. I told you what was going to happen. I told you what the rules were going to be and where I was going to go. You can't then be shocked when I didn't do the thing. This is gonna seem like a really weird analogy, but it's like, if I hand you a glass of water and I say, this is water, and then you take a sip and you're like, oh, I thought this was gonna be juice. It's like, I told you it was gonna be water. But he's like, well, I just thought you drink a lot of water. I just thought eventually you'd want juice. And it's like, no, when I said I only drink water, I meant I only drink water. But that's, it's my own personal experience. My partner just respects when I say no. I'm thankful that they do, and very grateful. It just sounds very overstimulating for me. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get lucky with a partner that can definitely respect that and is totally fine with it. But again, in my experience, it's been very few and far between to have that work out, like, long term. Like, I've even had people that are okay with that for like a year or 2 years, but then the longer you're in a relationship with an allosexual person, dating, I found, honestly, I just like date demisexual people. That's been my solution. It's like, just like, I actually don't even filter for it. We find each other at this point. I don't know, I just know how to pick up on the vibes of somebody who's demi. My protocol now, I don't even necessarily, like, okay, when I say I only date demi people, I don't even mean this like an intentional, like I've made it a rule for myself for dating. I have just found that I am most compatible with people that are somewhere on the non-allo side of the spectrum, and there's generally a lot more people that are demisexual versus somewhere else on the ace spectrum. And if I just date them, then it ends, then yay, then it works out, then it's good. But if it's an allo person, it's not working. It's not going. It's not vibing. Yeah, exactly. But the juice, yeah, the exact face they make. They're like, but I like juice. And it's like, well, you can go to the store and buy your own juice. You don't have to drink my water. You could have whatever juice you want to have on your own dime. And it's like, well, but I thought you'd share with me. Well, I can't because I don't have any juice. It's very ridiculous, very silly. Especially when you're in an open relationship. That's what's gotten me more than anything. It's like, we're not monogamous. You have other partners that are not me. You have other people, and you could also date more people. No one's stopping you. Go have sex with anybody you want. And then they don't, and they make it your problem. And it's like, well, it's not my fault that you haven't found any other people that are willing to do things to your genitals. Oopsie, sorry. Not my bad. Not my bad. That's on you. Nobody's bad, really, except for when you make it somebody's problem. Demis and aces all have purple auras and we can all see it somehow. Maybe that's what it is. I gotta test that out. Being arrow but not ace is interesting while also wanting connection but not romance. It's confusing, but I have not had much success, lol. Well, there's definitely other people in our community I know who are arrow, which is aromantic and not asexual. And I know, I think culturally people assume that's going to be easier because, oh, you just want to have sex. You can just have hookups. Like, who cares? But if you want a friendship, if you want emotional closeness, if you desire human interaction, because our society is very much based on romantic relationships being the emotional pillar of a lot of people's worlds, if you're only dating and you're only having sex and you're not dating, you don't have other friends, you don't have other support network stuff, it just becomes really, really difficult emotionally for people. And also, most people are not very good at no strings attached sexual relationships, which people don't even say anymore. People just say situationship, but no strings attached sex, which really means I'm going to care about you as little as possible. But it's few and far between the people that can successfully long-term. I think one and done is separate because there's sort of the mystery, the novelty of it, the knowing that you're not going to see each other again amplifies the experience, I imagine. But having a long-term sex-only or sex-focused relationship without a romantic component, I think, is actually very difficult for a lot of people because their romantic and sexual attraction is so connected to each other, and they might not even realize that they feel that way until it happens. And fellow aromantic and allosexual person, it's a ball of suck. If you're lucky, you're just a bachelor. Worst, you're a fuckboy for not even trying to pretend. Which, I completely agree with that. And I'm just there's no good way to prove that you're not a fuckboy except for by experience. I think part of it is maybe how you approach people and how you approach dating. Because I think there's people who are like, I just try to keep it real. And they, it's like they're almost on reality TV or something. Where they're acting what to my mind feels inauthentically. To put on airs of being like, I just want a bitch to suck my dick and then get the fuck out of my house. And they don't really mean that. But they're posturing because they want to look cool for people who are fans of Andrew Tate. And I don't think that you should want to look cool to people who are fans of Andrew Tate. But they've muddied the water so badly. That's like, how do you prove that you're not in that same cohort? How do you prove you're not one of them? Yes, I am really upfront about the fact that I want to have sex. But it's not because I think women are disposable cum rags. It's because, dating, the romance doesn't work with my brain. I swear to God, I promise. And you just have to find people where they're also in the same place. And it's just a numbers game of how many people in the world are aromantic or people that are emotionally capable of having non-romantic sexual relationships, which I think is more common in the kink community than outside of it. But even then, it's not very, very big numbers. I imagine there are people who do like sexual pickup play, but probably not very many. Especially when it's not just sex, but I don't know. I don't really look for that, so that's not I say not really, what I mean is I never looked for that, so I have no idea. Just to be very clear, so there's no ambiguity. Bandit is doing so much better. As you can see, she's taking a little snooze on her big pillow. She likes to do. She is more or less back to normal energy-wise, appetite-wise, doing all the normal things, but she is technically on rest orders until the middle of next week. So by like Thursday next week, she should be all back to her normal self. She's currently in a very silly blue onesie that makes her look like Thing 1 or Thing 2. Just tiny little body, big fluffy head. It's very silly. A color swapped Thing 1 and Thing 2. All right, but definitely got off track. Am I ever on track? There's no topic. This isn't a news broadcast. On dating and asexuality and stuff, definitely happy to talk about that more if people have additional curiosity. But good questions, good thoughts for sure. Oh, there we go. Reach the... okay, got booted to the bottom chat. Let me scroll back up here. Scroll. Okay, where was I? I don't think I lost any chat messages yet, so fingers crossed. I think I've got everybody's questions. Do you like cats at all? Or are you more of a dog person? I love them both, but I can't choose. I am more of a dog person, but it's mostly because I am quite allergic to cats, and I have not gotten to spend any extended personal time with a cat. I did have a roommate who briefly had a cat, and it was fine. The cat wasn't really that social, especially with me, and so I just didn't get to have any positive cat experiences. I like the idea of a cat. I think if I had more of a chance to be around cats, I could see myself really liking them, but I just I just can't be around them that much, so I don't know. But I like other people's cats and they've been around. I just also like dogs. Also, dogs can go outside a lot more, so that's also a positive. But I'm not somebody who hates cats, to be clear. I'm not like a cat hater. I'm not like, dogs are cool and cats drool. Very elementary school. I think that animals are great in general. I think finding the one that works the best for your lifestyle is the option that you should do. I know people who work really busy lives that have reptiles and all kinds of little creatures, and I don't understand lizards or reptiles or snakes at all, but the people who like them, and more power to them. At college, I heard a lot of sex educators talk about how people should discuss their sex drives early in a relationship. I'm not sure I've ever seen people actually do it though. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember whether or not I heard that being a commonly said thing at the time, usually from vanilla context sex educator people. But do people actually put it into practice is a different question. Because I think it's one thing to say, oh, you should bring this up, and then actually teaching people, how do you bring it up? What is that conversation? Because especially at that age, if you're 19, 20, 21, early 20s, just beyond that in general, I think people are nervous about disclosing information too quickly and scaring people off or overwhelming someone, or coming across as a sex hound or something, and they think that it's inappropriate and it discloses too much about yourself, because oh my god, what if they don't want to date me and they tell everybody that I want to have sex all the time and they think I'm a whore and blah blah blah. And I think I understand why people would be nervous about that. At the same time, that is a game you gotta play if you want to find like-minded individuals, and hopefully you find people that are also open to be willing and honest about their sexual experiences. But then there's also people who just, I've never had a partner ask me for my body count. It's never come up. Like, we've definitely had conversations about it. It's happened. But it's almost always because we've had another conversation where somehow their body count comes up, and then I'll bring up like, oh, I've, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, that's, I've never had anyone be like, how many people have you had sex with? When was your most recent boyfriend? Blah, 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 blah. If you're a mature individual, you probably don't care. And I think also talking about sex drives and sexual needs is a way of filtering for that too, where you're not just looking for people that have similar sex drives, but also, are they comfortable talking about sex with you? Can they be honest with you about this? Do they get jealous and possessive really easily? Because there's people out there, and this shocks me, but this people say it, so it has to be real for some people, who genuinely get upset at the idea that their partner has had sex with people other than them. And they get so spun up about it, and they get so nervous, and in their brain they're thinking, this person has to have a bigger dick. They must have given them better orgasms. They must have been better at this. They must have been better at going down on them. They must have been better at oral and blowjobs and whatever. And you have no way of knowing whether or not that's true, and that's only ever going to eat you alive. And obviously that relationship didn't work out because they're no longer with them. They're with you. So stop thinking about your partner's past partners and focus on being with them in the moment. Because what will ruin your relationship is not like your dick being half an inch shorter than the previous person's dick. What will ruin it is you ruminating about how big their past partner's dick was. And bringing it up and asking about it or ruminating on it and clearly thinking about that more than you're thinking about the relationship that you're in. Because why would you ever want to be in a relationship with someone where they're constantly questioning you, assuming that you're lying, assuming that you're comparing them to other people, and just always taking it negatively? That will absolutely damage a relationship for sure. Quite quickly. Body count is so stupid. I don't care if you slept with 100 people or if you're a virgin. Who are you as a person? That's all that counts. You'd think that would be the mentality that people would get as they mature, but sadly, no, not very many people get there, because you can sleep with 10 people or 100. And one, that doesn't necessarily make you better at sex. It definitely doesn't make your penis smaller. It doesn't make your vagina different. Any of the pseudoscience bullshit you've heard about people's bodies if they have sex with more than X number of people is just completely bunk, by the way, in general. It gives you information about what kind of dynamics you might be looking for or what types of sex you enjoy or don't broadly, but everything is so individual, partner to partner, that even if you've had sex with like 50 people, your current partner is going to be different than all of them and is going to bring out different energy between the two of you that wasn't present with the previous people that you've been with before. So that is really what counts. It's like, are you a good person? Who are you? Are we compatible? Can we have a conversation? But people just stop at like, well, but what if they've slept with 10 people and that makes them a whore? It's like, you're really limiting your pool there. Oh, computer's frying. Oh no. Okay, good luck, Lexi. Can't hang around long, but wanted to poke my head in and say hope everyone's all right, and I'm glad Bandit is recovering. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by. Have a good rest of your evening. I'm a 37-year-old dating a 29-year-old, so that better get out there now so you all can cancel me. 37 and 29 is fine. If someone has a problem with that, they need to just get over themselves. It's like, you have literally been an adult for over a decade at that point. Unless somebody is dealing with, like, they were in a cult for those 11 years they were an adult. Unless you're dealing with something like that, what are we even talking about, you know? And there are people where it's like, oh, well, they're 29, but they were Amish, and then they were in a different cult, and so they only got out of being Amish and then in a different cult like a year ago. And then it's like, well, okay, maybe we should back this up a little bit. But assuming you're people with broadly average life experiences, then, like, who gives a fuck? Ow! I forgot I was very close to my desk, and I went to go put my hand underneath my blanket because my hands were cold, and instead I punched my desk in a really bad way, and I don't recommend doing that. Do not accidentally poorly punch a desk. Alright, free sadomasochism, I guess. Okay, well, I didn't break any skin, so that's good. Just a little owie. Just a little owie. Just a little boo-boo. Just a little owie-kazowie. I can have sex without feeling romantically drawn to someone. It's just a biological need for me. Yeah, lots of people can do that. Also, lots of people are really bad at communicating that, unfortunately. As an A-spec, I cannot recommend doing long-distance relationships enough. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely found quite a bit of success doing at least semi-long-distance relationships. I also just like my personal space a whole lot outside of that, and that also makes it work a lot better. Definitely gotta have fun and have good talks. I mean, that's the whole point, honestly. That is, to me, the point of having a romantic relationship, is having continual, very deep, soul-searching conversations about everything. And if that's not what we're doing, then what the fuck are we doing? There's nothing that drives me up the wall more than somebody who I can't talk to, that I can't have a conversation with. I need somebody that's gonna yap with me. I need somebody that when we're in the car together for 8 hours, it's not fucking awkward. We don't have to talk the whole time. We just have to know that we're capable of having a conversation. If we can't shoot the breeze, then what are we doing here? I want to really deeply know you. I want you to really deeply know me. How the fuck are we gonna get there if every conversation we have is like, this is what I did this week at work. Isn't the weather really nice? Here's an article I read this morning that was interesting. If it never goes deeper than that, I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. There are people... I saw a post this morning on Twitter that I think might be a little bit true, and they were like, these are the types of relationships that, like, work really well long term. And number one is, like, high chemistry, high compatibility. So these are people that have very good sexual chemistry together, physically drawn together, have very high compatibility in terms of their relationship needs, their life goals, whether or not they want to have kids, where they want to live in, all that kind of thing. And that's relatively rare, but when that works, it just, like, fucking works. Then you have people that have either, like, high compatibility, or high chemistry rather, and they have medium compatibility. So they might have some disagreements about things, and they might, you know, have to compromise on a lot, and they might have to communicate quite a bit, but there's enough there to keep the relationship going and keep it fueled during those times when you're having disagreements about where you want to go on vacation, or how to spend money, or whether or not you're going to relocate for work. And then the third category is low chemistry, but very high compatibility. So people where you're in a lot of alignment about life goals, you know, you have kids, you make really good co-parents, you cohabit well together, and that part of life is very streamlined, but you have a relatively low amount of chemistry sexually, and so you're maybe not having sex that often, if at all, and that just works better, I think, maybe for an open relationship, where maybe you're getting your sexual needs met in other dynamics. or you both are relatively low sex drive anyways, and so the little chemistry isn't really that problematic. And I think more than that can probably work too, but certainly for the people I know that are in like long-term healthy relationships, that's probably the spread of what I see. And then the rest of it is a lot of people who just haven't realized they should break up yet. And there's a lot of people, like I think, who's the celebrity couple? Is it J-Lo? It's Jennifer Lopez and like, is it Ben Affleck? Are they the two that are always like fucking each other's brains out and then remarrying each other in between other spouses? And it is Jennifer Lawrence. That's not the right lady. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, who have like ping-ponged around each other for like fucking decades. And they are, to my mind, the pinnacle of high chemistry, low compatibility as a relationship style. Like, you keep forgetting that you don't work well together because you keep fucking each other. And then you go, well, we can probably make this work again. The sex is so good that it just has to work out. And, like, my last marriage didn't work, so, like, maybe this is, I'm destined to be here, and you're meant to be my person, and blah, blah, blah. And then they do that for a little while, and they go, holy fuck, this is not working. And then they break up, and then 2 years later, do the exact same fucking thing again. Celebrities, they're just like us. And, yeah, you gotta, and so that all ties back into why I think it's important to have sex conversations and dating goal conversations early on, right? Especially, okay, if you're in your early 20s and you don't fucking know what you want from life, you don't know what your sex drive is like because you're still figuring it out, that's amazing. That's a really exciting time of life to figure out who you are as a person, where you want to go, what your needs are, what kind of thing's going to serve you. Experimentation is a fun time. But then, when you have more experience, you probably get into your early 30s, maybe your late 20s, mid-30s beyond for sure. You have an understanding of, in order to have a successful relationship, here are the pieces I've drawn from introspection and previous experiences and dating in general and talking to people, and these are the things that I like need to have in a relationship. And then once you figure that out, like how you feel about marriage, how you feel about kids, how you feel about monogamy and polyamory, how you feel about kink and being vanilla, how you feel about cohabitation, how you feel about sharing a bedroom, what you want to do with your careers, how important money is to you, how important is career success. When you've talked about all that shit, then you know what you're like, broadly speaking, assuming both of you are honest and aware enough to know things about yourself accurately. There are some people that have no fucking clue and are happy to bullshit you and tell you that they want something or don't want something when they really do or don't want the opposite. There are so many people who are wishy-washy about kids or cohabitation, or they swear up and down it's not for them, and then like a year and they change their mind because brain chemistry does weird things. This is why we talk. So anyways, don't be Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck. It's a very millennial reference, but I think it works. The weird part is this wasn't an edge. I banged it, well, it was an edge, but it wasn't a corner. I banged it on an edge, and then I just have to, wrap my desk in silicone? Actually, that wouldn't be the worst idea ever, is to have just a giant silicone container around my desktop. Wouldn't be the most terrible idea ever. Some people only get into relationships just for the sex. That just seems extremely shallow to me. I mean, I think if you're honest about it, who gives a fuck? Like, whether you only want romance and not sex, or vice versa, it's about what you both want and being honest about it. I think the problem is when you delude yourself into thinking that only sex makes for a good romantic relationship, or to be life partners, more broadly. Just because you can bang each other's brains out does not fucking mean that you should move in together, or get married, or have kids. Those things might happen by accident, but it doesn't mean you should do it. All right, I'm going to close the Jennifer Lopez tab on my my computer here. Okay. Scrolling. As someone who hasn't been to in-person kinky spaces and has a lot of anxiety in unfamiliar environments, can you detail what they actually look like and what the vibes are like so I can feel prepared? So what would be best for you is I can describe what my dungeons have looked like, but that won't necessarily help you because everywhere is a little bit different. So instead, what I would do, if you do better when you're able to scope out an environment ahead of time, is go to the dungeon's FetLife page or website and look at the photos of their past parties, their furniture, their dungeon layout. They should have some. If they don't, that's a little suspect. Sometimes people are more private, and so they don't want to post photos like that to the whole internet, and then I kind of get why they don't. But you should probably scope out dungeons that are in your area that you would potentially want to go to, so you know what they look like in particular, because they can vary quite a bit in terms of, are they a big open warehouse space? Are they in an industrial area? Are they multi-level or not? Do they have a waiting area? Do they have separate aftercare rooms? Do they have soft furniture? Do they have a bunch of rooms with little like half Dutch doors on them? So the layout, the types of things you're going to see. I don't think I'm that great at verbally describing visual experiences out loud. And I think you're just going to get way more bang for your buck if you just go to a dungeon's website and look at stuff. You can even just go to like the Kink Fest website or go to like a big convention website and then look at their photos. Like Dark Odyssey has a ton, Kink Fest has a couple. Go to one of those and look at their photos that they have on their website for promotional purposes for their various things. And you're going to get a pretty good sense of what those things are like. So yeah, that would probably be the best thing to do. And then the other thing that I would add on to that, that's probably similar to what you're already doing, but just to say it, is I find I have more success if I can mentally think about myself having a successful experience before going out and doing the thing. So if I was nervous about going to a new dungeon, one, I would be very clear about what my intention is for going to that event. Do I want to meet people? Do I just want to get to know the space better? Do I want to have a conversation with somebody? Do I want to have a scene or not? On and on and on and on. So find out what your goal is. And then I would walk through mentally the idea of, in as much detail as possible, going through the doors, getting checked in, being in the space, thinking about what outfit you're wearing, talking to people, watching things happen. Describe to yourself whatever physical and emotional experience would go along with feeling successful walking through that. So if I am talking to myself about, I'm going to a brand new convention never been to before, I'm not going to know anybody, and I'm going by myself because I'm only going there as like an educator, so I'm nervous about being alone in a dungeon, and what I want to do is feel comfortable in the environment watching other people's scenes. So what I'll visualize is I picture myself getting ready, and I feel confident in my outfit, and I feel well rested, and then I go down and I take the elevator and I walk through the area to get my wristband checked, and I go through behind the curtains and I walk into the dungeon, and there's nice music playing, but it's not too loud. There's people chit-chatting. There's a lot of people in the middle of scenes, and I'm looking around and there's lights happening, and there's, you know, people looking happy about what's happening to them, and people just sort of milling around. And I walk around through the space and I watch some scenes, and it gives me ideas for things I want to do in the future, and I feel really grateful for being in this space and getting to experience this now, and I feel happiness for other people having scenes that they're enjoying, and so on and so on and so on, right? So just like really, as much as you can, think about yourself succeeding, practice before you get there, because what you're trying to do is you're essentially making a new, you're kind of marking out a new neural pathway for your brain to follow, where because you've already visualized yourself succeeding at this, it becomes a lot easier for you to have success in the moment versus catastrophizing, ruminating, feeling lost, panicking, and going down the maybe previously more typical route of feeling really uncomfortable and having to deal with the unknown. Because especially if you have a lot of visual aids or you can picture things in a lot of detail in your brain doesn't necessarily make as big of a distinction as you might think from visualizing something versus pictures of something versus like being there in the moment actually experiencing that thing. And I actually got this technique from a weightlifting book that I have where he actually has a couple different degrees, but I think he has like a PhD in physiology or something. But the author of the book talked about how he got back into, I think it was deadlifting after recovering from, I think, a back injury. And how the first thing that he did, even before he picked up weights again, was he spent a lot of time just like mentally building up the confidence to be back in the gym, to think about lifting weights, to lift them successfully. He did that for like, I think on like 2 weeks or something before he like actually got back into lifting. And that was actually practically because part of it was not reactivating the injury again too soon. But if you're only dealing with mental stuff, I think you can do that in a quite a bit shorter amount of time if you'd like, or if you don't have time to do more. But that I've genuinely found to be like one of those like weird tricks, you know, doctors hate her. But genuinely, that is very helpful to do, in my experience, is to, as opposed to wantonly ruminating about all of the ways something could go wrong or be awkward or not work out and just catastrophizing with 20 different possibilities, instead of doing that, you're pre-writing out a visual plan for your brain to follow of this is how it's going to be, this is how it's going to work. And when you've already done that practice, it becomes easier to do in the moment under higher pressure when circumstances aren't perfect. It's the mental equivalent of doing a fire drill, essentially. We're like, yeah, in a real fire, there's going to be other things going on. It's going to be more intense. There's going to be more stimuli. There's going to be things that this plan doesn't account for. But because we have practiced this already, we're on stronger footing for dealing with the fire in a safer way than if we had like never thought about it at all, you know? So hopefully that gives you a sense of what to do. What was the weightlifting book? It was a Brett Contreras book. I want to say it was the Glute Lab book is the one. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I want to say it was Brett Contreras's Glute Lab book is the one where he talks about this, but it could have been on one of his blog posts as well, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm sure he's talked about this in more than just that one book, actually. I will be practice bottom on the 18th. Details on FetLife. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you. Heading to bed. Good night, Evie and everyone. Also remember, you're awesome. Oh, thank you. Yeah, have a good night. So happy to be back. I'm with my darling Buzz Stingier. Interesting together. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so I think that's going to be it for that question. Thank you so much. Hopefully that gave you some things to think about there. Some techniques to use. Oh dear. Oh, I lost my place in the chat. I gotta scroll. Talking about body counts, talking about dogs, talking about boundaries, talking about water and juice, because I make the best analogies. No one does better analogies than me. The best analogies this side of YouTube, for sure. I don't make the best puns, but I think I make pretty good frequent analogies. Oh, sleepy baby. I didn't even realize she moved. That's so cute. Any advice on an atypical reaction to Aftercare? I love intense scenes and heavy impact, but once the play is done, I don't want to be touched. Oh my gosh. Okay, so where do I want to tackle this first? Okay, first of all, I will say that oftentimes we talk about Aftercare as being a one-size-fits-all experience. And it definitely is not. It definitely is not a one-size-fits-all. And people go, oh, well, you should have chocolate, and you should cuddle, and you should talk afterwards. And that's a fine starting point for a lot of people. But when you dig into the physiological things that can happen during a scene and the fact that so many people in our scene are neurodivergent, that rule of thumb is a very, very loose rule of thumb. And aftercare doesn't have to include any of those things, and it definitely does not have to include physical touch. I actually, especially for pickup play, I am very willing to do physical touch with somebody and cuddle with someone after a scene if that's what they want, but I don't really get anything out of it. It does not make my scene drop any easier. It does not make my scene drop better. Even with partners, I don't necessarily really need snuggly cuddles all the time. Like, sometimes it's nice, but usually what I really want to do is like take a nap or take a hot shower or do almost anything else other than that first as some kind of stimulus. But I think it's common, probably more than people talk about, to be overstimulated during a scene, either mentally or physically, and to not want more stimulus after that physically, to not want more sensory inputs. So it sounds like what you need to do is just try out different types of aftercare that don't involve you being touched. And maybe your partner that you're currently playing with, or people you play with in general, do want physical touch back, and maybe there's some kind of middle ground you can reach, or maybe it's not like snuggling together closely, but maybe maybe you're touching them and they're not touching you back, right? Like maybe you're like brushing their hair or giving them a foot massage or giving them a back rub, and you're only giving and not receiving, and maybe that works out better for you. That could still mean you have still tactile sensation in your fingers, so that might not fully solve the issue, but don't do touch if it isn't working for you. You can do plenty of other activities. I personally find, like I was saying, a light walk, a shower, a bath, a nap, maybe instead of physical touch, having something warm or heavy on you, like a heated blanket or a weighted blanket, might work out better instead of somebody, physically interacting with you. And, listen to your body and what it's telling you. And I think it really comes down to just trying other stuff that's going to work for you a lot better than what the standard is. And now that I've said that, I should probably make a note for my aftercare class and see if I have something about like overstimulation, because I can't remember right now. I know I have a very nice and neat little formula of a aftercare starter pack that you can begin from that works for people. So instead of just doing, by default, water, cuddles, chocolate, because I think is the default a lot of people go to, having one kind of, in the next 24 hours, having some kind of light physical activity, having some kind of, healthy, or maybe not even healthy is the word I would use, but having some kind of beneficial food intake with the goal of replenishing electrolytes, neurotransmitters, etc. Water, for sure, I think is like a pretty safe universal, because dehydration, I think I have a 64-ounce water bottle. And then having some kind of way to reconnect with your partner. That could be cuddles, that could be having a conversation, that could be doing some kind of art thing together, that could be having shared experiences together, doing one of the other activities, like being in silence together while you both eat a salad, or not talking to each other, but like hanging out on a hot tub together. Or, quietly doing a foot rub or a head rub or hair brushing or a massage or something. So there's ways to mix and match that I think get to what water, chocolate, cuddles is trying to get to, but I think works for more people and is more informed by like the individuality of human biology and the different scenes that you end up doing. So hopefully that gives you some thoughts, but you'd be shocked. I think a lot of people do not necessarily want cuddles, even if that's the standard. not wanting to be touched is totally legit. My ex-mother-in-law, may she rest in peace, was a hardcore masochist, but she wanted left alone to smoke a cigarette in peace, and then she would go back to socializing after play. I mean, oh yeah, there's lots of people with their aftercare is like a sip of water and a cigarette alone. And like, that's also valid. I mean, you know, I don't personally smoke cigarettes, but I know plenty of people who do that are in the scene. And honestly, you can tell you're at a kink convention when more than 2 people in leather are standing around outside smoking together. It's like how I know I've arrived at a leather convention. So lots of people, touch doesn't work for them. Totally understandable. And I think it's, like I was saying, communicating, find what works for you. Oh my god, what happened to the dog camera? The fuck? Alright, we've zoomed all the way up for some reason. They've hacked me. They've exploited my my camera. Hi, little papita. What are you doing, papita? Wink, wink. The camera got messed up for a second. I'm just fixing it. Oh, sweet girl. Okay. Alrighty. More questions. Unfortunately, I'm unattached right now, so I mainly play at events or clubs. I usually drink water, and I'm too energized to hold still. It can last for several hours. Oh, that's a good point, too. Like, you get so much energy from play that, like, having to sit still and cuddle is, like, diabolical to you. So in that case, I definitely would go for the physical activity part, even if it's, like, and I know when it's, like, okay, it's like, midnight, you're not gonna do it, but, like, the next day, or you, okay, so if you're playing with somebody and you're connected to them in some way, then I think playing earlier in the day and having time for a walk afterwards can be good. But I think also, like, hanging out on the treadmill for a little while, going into the gym for a bit, going for a run on the treadmill if you want to, having a way to work through that excess energy sounds like that actually would work really well for you. Because a lot of people do get, like, quite energized from playing, and it can be hard to let go of the energy after the scene is done, especially if they need to go to sleep right away. Smoking is bad, kids, but I sure met a lot of kinksters outside smoking. It's yeah, I'm not saying that's a reason you should smoke is to meet people, but that is one of the side benefits that people who smoke will talk about for sure. Completely off topic, but can simulated findom be a thing? I'm not into actual findom, but roleplay sounds fun with fake money. You know what I'm gonna say? Of course! I love the idea of doing a fun money, Monopoly money scene where you're like, can you know, like the things people get where they get like the cash gun where like the dollar bills come out of the gun and it sprays everywhere? Can you get one of those for Monopoly money? Can you make it rain on somebody with Monopoly money? I think that would be really funny. As far as the motivations for a Fin sub to do that, I think the traditional Fin sub who is actually sending real money to pro doms is probably not going to be fulfilled by that. But as a random fun exploration of a different type of DS within the community that I think could be a silly thing to do at a play party, 100%. I think that's awesome. I think that's worth exploring and getting into as a potential kink avenue, is doing simulated findom. And a lot of what people get out of findom as well, even if they're like really doing it with a pro dom, is talking about being drained, talking about the money going away. And so if they send money and then the charges get reversed later, like the next day, they have already gotten the stimulation of the release of the money and like losing it, and then they get it back, so it doesn't actually really like financially affect them. I don't think very many people end up doing that. There's certainly a lot of Fin subs I have heard of who will send money to a dom and then get their services and then do a chargeback, which you should absolutely not fucking do. Oh my god, good way to get blacklisted forever. But also can get the dom in trouble, because usually you have to have a reason to have the chargeback, right? Like, oh, somebody stole my credit card at the strip club, and then suddenly they're sending all these doms money that I don't know about. Like, you're going to get people in trouble doing that. So definitely do not do that, but I'm just saying that that's a thing that does happen as well. But yeah, simulated femdom could be a thing. I think it goes back to, like, how much can you suspend your disbelief? Like earlier, I think on Tuesday for our Patreon stream, we had a conversation about bondage and being locked into a cage or not. And there are people where physically being locked into something is what makes that kink work. Like they need the lock to really be locked. They need to watch their partner lock them in. If they know that they could get out on their own, it ruins the experience. And they're like, why am I doing that? They can still build in safety things, right? Like a key in, some kind of hidden area or an emergency key stashed somewhere. Like, okay, we can have safety valves, but they should be as out of sight, out of mind as possible for the most part. Whereas for other people like me, the act of being in bondage is not about being restrained and unable to get out of my own free will if I wanted to. It's about choosing to stay restrained out of deference to my partner when I know that I could get out if I wanted to. Like, do you see the difference between those two of those things, right? Like, there's bondage that's done because your will no longer matters. That choice has been made for you. Your power has been taken away. You have no control. You have lost control versus I am making an active choice to stay restrained. I could free myself, but it's through obligation, duty, obedience, willing to submit to you, whatever flavor of feeling is going on there, that I am choosing to stay behind this cage door, even though I could open it, even though I could grab the key that's right there, even if I could just take this collar off right now, right? That I'm choosing to, like, almost continue to mentally restrain myself on your behalf, to give up my willpower as opposed to my literal power. Does that, like, or using my willpower to, I guess probably a better way for me is like using my willpower towards myself to continue the restraint mentally. I don't know. I feel like I could probably, if I had time, I could write this down and it would make more sense, but that's essentially the difference. What the fuck? People charge back findoms? Oh, yeah, they do. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, do. I believe the term is auto-sadomasochism. Yes, correct. For when I slam my hand into the desk of my very own free will. Definitely not something you'd want to proudly carry a bruise from. Yeah, definitely not. I guess I could say I tried boxing, and that would probably cover it. I struggle with people who are great chats in person, but are really formal and procedural over text. Fucking tell me about it. Oh my God. I have tried dating people before where, like, we get coffee, we go out to dinner, and it's a great conversation. We talk the whole time. We talk for hours and hours, and then they, like, can't text. They just can't do it. They, like, forget to. They send you, like, 2 lines, and it's like, I don't understand why you can't translate this into text form. This is not going to work because I need to be able to have a conversation. Or at the very least, I do have partners where they do text infrequently and we do save our conversations for in person, but that's all something I'm very aware of going into it. I'm like, this is not the person I text if I want to have a deep conversation because they just can't do it. But it does, like, if I could change that, I would definitely change it. Not my preference, but it is something that's like, okay, this is like the one thing, then we work around it. Oh, definitely a big part of it is fear too. Like fear that if you're open and honest, you will end the relationship. That I think keeps a lot of people from saying what they really need. And it's like, you're really just, I know it's so hard, but like you are really delaying the inevitable. If you know that you need something that you don't think the other person can give you, if you don't say it, you're delaying the pain, you're delaying the breakup, but you're paying for that in time that you could have spent looking for somebody else that is going to be compatible with you. Or you've lost out on time that you could have been using to do the thing that you both want to have happen. Like the kink stuff you want to do, or the bondage, or the open relationship, or the so on and so on and so on, right? So just, you know, you only live once, you only have so many years on this earth. Make it count. Do what makes your heart happy, and stop wasting time in dynamics that aren't working for you. Whether that's friendships, whether it's dating, whether it's a sexual dynamic, whether it's a kink dynamic. Just stop wasting time on people and things, but especially relationships that are not really giving you what you want on any level. Do not be the Reddit story of the person who's been dating someone for 6 years and we finally got engaged and we're finally gonna get married, and you have a laundry list of like the 50 reasons you definitely should not get married. Where, well, I mean, like, you know, I love them and we're compatible, but you know, they're a slob and they work different hours than me and they get grouchy really easily and they don't, you know, take out the trash when I tell them to, and they say that I'm a nag, and they have a really high sex drive. They keep touching me when I don't want to be touched, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, so you want to tell me you love this person, but you cannot name more than 2 things that you actually like about each other that are not just the penis. You have to like more things than their dick. I don't care if it's a bio dick. I don't care if it's a strap-on. If the only part about them that you like is their equipment downstairs, factory installed or not, well, at the very least, you should be having a very limited relationship scope, because, well, it doesn't work out, does it? Okay, I'm gonna do one more question here, and then for the rest of the stream, we're gonna go over to the Q&A feature and check out what's going on in there. I think I had one more, because the problem is like when I go to the Q&A chat, I lose where I'm at in this chat. So I want to make sure I'm getting to all the earlier ones in here. What do you think of emotional sadomasochism that is based on unchangeable truths, shaming someone's past, body humiliation, etc., that is often trauma-induced, makes aftercare tricky, best avoided? So yes, definitely very tricky. I wouldn't necessarily say best avoided, but it's certainly a proceed with caution. It depends on how much that is impacting them right now. Yes, and thank you, Sean, so much for our 15-minute warning. If you have not asked your question, I really recommend either using a super chat, as Sean has done, or just asking it now, because I definitely will not get to it if you ask in the next, 5 minutes. So just come back next week and we can talk about it then. But definitely something that you need to proceed with caution around. And like I was getting to, it depends on how resolve the trauma is. Like, personally for me, I would, if somebody just got out of an abusive relationship 6 months ago and their ex-partner was very verbally abusive and told them that they were fat, ugly, had disgusting hair, that no one would love them because of what a slob they were, they looked like a pig, blah, 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 I would not get anywhere near touching that until I was certain that they had done the work, done therapy, and had processed the trauma and grief of experiencing that relationship. If something happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if it's part of their life history that they've worked through, then I think that there's more ease and probably more safety in working through that. But even then, I think it's about rhyming with the experience, not repeating the experience. Does that make sense? Like, it's one thing to have a scene where you are wearing the same outfit, wearing the same cologne, saying the exact same phrases, doing everything you can to recreate and relive that exact trauma, versus doing something similar that reminds the person of the trauma they experienced, right? Like, if you were doing a scene where, okay, I have this abusive verbal relationship from my past, and they insulted how I looked a lot, and they would especially target, my body, my looks, my hairstyle, my hair color, whatever, I would try to figure out, okay, what were the things I used to say to you a lot? What was like, I would really dig into what the specifics of that were, and then find things that are similar that are not one-to-one exactly the same as what they used to say. Like, if they used to always say that, like, I don't know why I'm with somebody that has, I don't know why I'm fucking a brunette when I could be fucking a hot blonde, right? Like, something like that, right? Where they're building insecurity in the relationship by reminding the person that you're less valuable because of how you look, and I actually prefer somebody who has something different going on with their hair or their whatever. That's one thing. And I can take that example and I can turn that into, like, maybe I say that they have mousy hair or something, and it's really dull and it's really boring. But, like, I'm not saying the exact same thing. I'm trying to go the same direction without following the same path. And then also, I think, too, it depends on how important that particular thing is to their sense of self right now. Like, for me, if I had trauma in my past where someone was, I don't know, constantly insinuating that I would look a lot better as, like, a hot blonde PTA mom, and that, being, having black hair and having piercings or whatever made me, like, less desirable, and that, like, no one's gonna love me because I'm too alternative and I need to, like, mature and grow up. Like, if that was really important to me for my sense of self, I took that very close to heart, I probably wouldn't play with that. And if that wasn't something that, like, okay, that was hurtful and it sucked, but, like, I'm very secure in who I am and how I dress and how to present myself to the world, so it feels safer for me to play with that, even if it is also important to me at the same time. Whereas, maybe I put a lot of value into my intelligence, my ability to solve problems, and if you were to insult that repeatedly, that actually would be, like, a really big deal, and you absolutely shouldn't do that because it would really, stick in my brain. I probably wouldn't play with that, even if it wasn't trauma related, just because it's so important to your sense of self. I really recommend Midori's classes on humiliation stuff. Also really like Princess Callie. So if you haven't taken something from them and you want to play with edgier humiliation that butts up against trauma, then I would probably go there. But it's tricky. And this is not something, this would be, if I was getting anywhere near this, there's so much other good stuff. If you like emotional sadomasochism, if you like humiliation especially, then there are so many other things you can do first before you get to the point of touching on specific traumas. Like, spend a couple months, spend a year or two doing scenes that are not trauma related, that involve humiliation, build up that rapport and that comfort, and then get into the stuff that's a little bit more, like, dangerous, edgy, and maybe difficult to sit with for people. Hello, welcome. Yes, we are live for like 10 more minutes, so thanks for stopping by. All right, I'm going over to the Q&A box, so if you've not put your question in, absolutely last warning. I'm going to try my best to get to people. Also, thank you, everyone, for the super chats and becoming a member. It's really, really nice to see. And thank you for supporting my work. Okay, going over the questions. Oh, we got a whole bunch in here. Haha, is Pokemon pet play a thing? If so, how would you implement it? Would it be ... training? It's not as common as you might think. It is a thing. Very long time ago, I did a quite silly outdoor group scene that was Pokemon pet play, And it was people like pretending they were doing Pokemon battles with their pets, like fighting each other. So I think training would be part of it, but I think a lot of it is also having your pets roughhouse with each other at your direction. So possible, not as common as you might think. Do you think it's... Ooh, this is a good question. Do you think it's possible to have a fulfilling relationship with someone who isn't into your kinks? I honestly feel like I wouldn't be satisfied if my partner couldn't be that outlet or dynamic with me. So, this depends on how important kink is to you. For me, because of how important it is in my life, and I want people I can go to events with, I can go to conventions with, that I can talk with about my job and they're going to understand what I'm saying. Kink is really important to me. And so I probably wouldn't intentionally exclusively date. Actually, I'm going to say I would not intentionally exclusively date a vanilla person. That just would not work. It's like, no, it's not going to happen. It just would not work. I did that before and it didn't work. So I would not go back to that. I learned that lesson before I got into kink, that why isn't vanilla dating working? This is why. So for me, it wouldn't work. For other people, if it depends on, like, okay, so for me, kink is a really, really, really big part of my life, right? And other things are less important to me, like religion, for example. And so I am more willing to be selective around kink and leave myself room to be flexible on other areas of a relationship. But if you're just like kind of casually interested in kink, you've done it a couple times, it's fun, but it's not blowing your mind, you might be able to make a relationship work if kink is something you're okay foregoing for the foreseeable future to be with that person. And I think you can do that. But it just depends on how important kink is to you. I think as well, it depends on how exclusive the relationship is. So, if you know you are kinky with a capital K, and you want to go to events, and you want to party, and you want to go to conventions, you have to decide if you're willing to forego that and feel the unhappiness that will go with losing access to that to be with a particular person. But you could also just not be exclusive. And you could have maybe a really solid nesting partner or a life partner that you have high compatibility with, that you don't do kink stuff with, which, by the way, is very, very common. And then you have other partners that you do kinky stuff with that are maybe not as big of a part of your day-to-day life, but they are important to you nonetheless because of the fact that you can do kinky stuff with them. That's probably what I would say. But I think for most people, especially people that are on this channel who are like into kink, you're probably not going to be satisfied with just, having to be vanilla, because obviously it didn't work up to now. Thank you, Twixie, for the super chat. Thank you. I think I answered that one already. Don't understand what that question's trying to ask. I'm sorry. I'm gonna skip some of these. I don't understand what the question is. This is just a short, easy one. Do you consider degradation and humiliation to be emotional S&M? Yes, very much so. I think there's about a million different ways of defining degradation and humiliation. I don't seem to agree with a couple of different people's definitions of degradation, but that's like people will. Anyways, we don't have to get into that. It's a whole other can of worms. But the short answer is yes, I do. Answered about how Bandit is doing already. Thank you so much for asking. Answered the one about atypical reactions to play and aftercare. What would be an example of vetting for a play partner? Like, how would you go about it personally, or what are some ways you've seen others do it? Love your content, Evie. So one is, I'm like 99% sure I have a video where I talk about this, and it's probably like staying safe in the BDSM community, or vetting tips, or how to find a partner. It's probably in like one of those types of videos. But how I vet a partner is essentially, it depends on what we're going to be doing, but I'm going to give you a general example of like I've met someone, they're in the kink community, we're gonna do pick up play together at a dungeon, okay? Just like the most bog standard thing you could do for kink. One is, especially if you're local to the area, being involved locally in the community so that way you can talk to other people and, you know, physically say, you know, hey, does anyone know about such and such? Does anyone play with such and such? They came up to me and they said they wanted to do this thing and I want to hear people's experiences. Sometimes people will know, sometimes they won't. Second option is when you're negotiating with the person, you will ask them directly for references. This, I think, is probably the most common way that people will do it. However, this is flawed because obviously people will probably selectively choose the people who are the most likely to say positive things about them. Just like with like job references, for example, you're not going to give a potential new job a reference to somebody who you just like had an awful experience with. People aren't going to be doing that. So you combine that with asking them, okay, just leave that there. We'll loop back around. Number 3 is being part of private, usually online vetting groups that are more national and international, where people ask just over the internet, hey, does anyone know anything about this person? Have you played with them before? And then people respond to that. Some people are newer. They might have moved. They might not have been in the community for very long. They might not have references to give you, or other people might not have been able to play with them. In which case, as a backup to vetting that you should be using regardless, you ask them clear questions about what is your experience level in kink? How long have you been doing this thing for? Describe to me a scene that you did with this that went well. Follow-up question to that is, tell me about a time when a scene didn't go well and how did you handle it? Right? Kind of, this is sort of like interview style questions. What is something that you think you need to work on as a dominant or as a top? In addition to how you learned about this in the past, how are you involved in the local scene? Do you attend classes? Do you practice, right? What does your practice look like for this skill set? Yada, yada, yada. And by evaluating what they say about their experience by past partners, about past scenes, or about past partners and about past scenes, you're gonna get more of a sense of who they are as a person. And it's not necessarily just to look for them like slipping up and saying something that's a red flag really directly. It's about looking at the whole picture, right? Like, is every single experience super positive? Do they seem to lack personal reflection? Are they the sort of person where when you ask them, like, what would you say you need to work on the most as a dom? They say, well, I just need to work on like caring too much because I get really involved with my partner's emotional experience and that makes it hard for me to focus on the scene. Like, that's fucking interview ass bullshit. Like, don't give me that, please. So do they only paint themselves with a very positive picture universally? Do they lack insight or not into themselves? Do they tend to be deflective? Do they get defensive? Can they give you a concrete answer? Do they take education seriously or not? Do they have a way of telling you, this is how I learned, what I learned, who I learned from, and when? Do they practice regularly? Where do they practice? Yada, 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 right? And that will just give you a whole picture. And this is also why when you're playing with new people, it's best to start off low stakes, public scene, low intensity kink, set amount of time, very firm boundaries, and then evaluate how that goes. And then as you're playing with them, you expand that out a little wider and wider and wider. So you're getting a sense of, are they consistent scene to scene? Do they try to renegotiate? Do they try to up-negotiate? Do they belittle you? How is their aftercare practice? Do they talk to you the way that you expect them to? Do they treat you with respect, right? Or are they just chasing as many bottoms as possible? And then, you know, some sometimes really bad manipulators will hide who they are for a long time, but this will weed out a lot of the garden variety bad actors who are not going to be good at keeping up a facade out of the hope that they're going to get sacked. They're hoping for some reason, this is always what it goes back to, they're hoping that they're going to get sex that you don't want to give them, or that, you know, they're going to be able to manipulate you into doing kink a certain way that they want to do. And just being very aware of what's happening, you know, keep notes of how you feel after a scene. And like, if you consistently feel crappy playing with this person, they don't listen to you, they don't take feedback well, they're flaky, they try to up negotiate, any of those kind of red flag things, document that, see if it's a pattern, and then if it's not looking great, then don't keep playing with them. Vetting is a good tool when you're really involved in the community, but if you're not very involved and they're not very involved, then actual vetting practices for a partner, like I've definitely done kink with people eventually that I've like met on a dating app who are not involved in the local scene at all for various reasons. And because of that, you know, I take things a lot slower. Those are also romantic relationships, so I'm conducting the relationship differently than I would. And kink doesn't typically happen until quite a bit later because, you know, our first date isn't going to be a kink activity, right? Like, we're going to get coffee, then we're going to get dinner, then we're going to go on a walk, and then we're going to get to know each other really well. We're going to have a lot of conversations. I'm going to get to know you, and then if I don't think you're up to snuff, then like nothing's going to happen, right? So it's that is about what you need to know on that. My biggest flaw as a top/bottom is I care too much about my bottom/tops. I'm too invested in having them experience the best scene that I sometimes neglect my own needs. Oh my god, bro, we were like psychologically linked. We like totally saw the exact right thing in that. But anyways, that's my answer for that. Thank you all so much for asking your questions. Again, if you want to have me answer your question, the best way that you can do that is by using a super chat. Thank you all so much for joining me on this Friday evening. It really means so much that you spend a little bit of your Friday with me. Go forth and have a great rest of your evening. Stay safe, have fun, drink your water. I'll talk to you all again very soon. Bye. Yeah, I know, sweetheart. You want to say goodbye to the people? They couldn't see your little onesie. The people want to see your little onesie. Come here. Little bonus for staying till the end of the stream is you get to see my puppy. Oh, little lady, look at you and your little onesie. What is this? Look at you. We are not color coordinated, but that's okay. This only came in blue. We can't help it. Look how small she is. Underneath the... Have you been on my desk before? I don't know. What's going on up here, huh? What's going on there? Hi, little baby girl. Hello. Hello, baby. Oh, so good. Yes, a little baby. So fluffy. So perfect. So wonderful. Yeah, little cheek rubs. Little puppy cheek rubs. There you go. Alrighty, sweetie pies. I will see you all later. Can't help myself. He's too cute. Anyways, see you all later. If you have not watched the new video, please go